Welcome to another coffee break session. Today's topic of navigating the chaos of choices for cybersecurity. Happy to be joined today by Josh Moore, Senior Solutions Architect. Good morning, Josh.
Good morning, Jeff. How are you doing today?
Good, thanks. Happy Friday to you.
Hey,
We've talked several times on coffee breaks, you and I, about cybersecurity, and it's obviously an ongoing topic of consideration. But it's interesting today to be talking about the amount of choices, which are pretty significant. And while people are worried about how to fix or how to close holes or do whatever it takes to not have a cybersecurity incident within the organization, the paralysis associated with the amount of things to choose from is pretty significant. So interested to talk to you today about this and to help to educate everyone on what we're seeing and what we're doing to help our clients. But before we get into that, just a quick reminder that we'd be happy to take questions that you have, either answer them live during the session, or we can always follow up as well if we don't have time or the opportunity to get to the question. The best way to pose the questions is the Q&A box down at the bottom of the Zoom channel. If you post it there, we'll be able to see it. Chat's another option if you choose to do that as well. And stay tuned at the end for information about any upcoming events, as well as the opportunity to claim your coffee gift card. So Josh, cybersecurity is really the constant in the minds of business owners, we think. It's clearly something we're talking about every day with clients, potential clients. We know that there is that potential for risk, and we're seeing it in the news. And obviously, again, like I said before, it's a constant conversation. We hear about the terrible stories and the significant things like the Colonial pipeline breach and other things. But can you summarize really, either the Colonial pipeline breach or the one that we heard recently about Cassette, and maybe explain to the group really why is this such a big deal? There's obviously a lot of conversation about it, but why do business owners, leaders, IT managers, directors really need to be paying attention to this?
Yeah, well, first of all, the Colonial pipeline breach, it just shows that, these threat actors abroad are really targeting a wide array of different organizations. Probably not high on anybody's radar, but definitely a critical piece of our infrastructure. Working in gas fuel industry, certainly a lot of revenue attached within that organization to be able to, pay off a ransomware outbreak. But, with Colonial pipeline, it just kind of shows, really need that layered approach to being able to protect yourself. And what they did in that situation was they had a ransomware outbreak that impacted their backups and thus their ability to restore operations in a timely fashion. So they have eventually ended up paying the threat actors. Luckily, the FBI was able to trace some of those dollars and got about 3/4 of the total payout back to Colonial pipeline. Not going to be available in all payoffs, and don't recommend paying off. But the Cassette breach was one that was very interesting from the standpoint of these threat actors are now starting to really try to attack MSPs, those technology organizations that manage multiple clients. And there was a Cassette vulnerability. There was less than 40 MSPs that were impacted by the breach. But it's kind of a cascading effect where you crack that one nut, that MSP, and you might get 60 to 70 different clients that are a part of that. And the way they executed that breach is they took advantage of that vulnerability and then used the Cassette tool, which is a remote management tool that can push down updates to really distribute a ransomware payload through that software. And it's just something where they can hit a broad number of customers to be able to get a larger ransom as a result of that attack. And we'll talk about it a little bit later when we review some of the various security solutions that could have prevented this. But MSPs need to do their due diligence to make sure that they're secured as well.
Yeah, this obviously the Cassette Breach is pretty wide open. IWide was in a wow was a eye-opening experience for all of us in the industry, and for those of us that provide technology management and support to small businesses. But kind of in a broad strokes perspective, what does this say about really what small and medium businesses need to be thinking about about these attacks, and that there's not necessarily a one size fits all, and that layers are truly important.
Yeah, what it really means for small, medium-sized businesses that want to invest in security, improve their posture to stop these kind of threats. There's some key check boxes you need to check, right? Multi-factor authentication being one, so you can tie that identity to the employee and have a way for them to be able to validate that stuff. Client security has shifted. Antivirus is no longer something that's going to adequately protect your infrastructure. Endpoint detect and response solutions have really emerged, where they can do a lot better job of correlating these types of attacks. And even if a ransomware break happens, whether that's a threat actor that's got access to your systems or potentially a user that's clicking on an email link, it can stop it right in its tracks. So these next generation tools are highly recommended. But even above and beyond that, there's SIM solutions that tie in events that are happening on Office 365, events within your network that can be taken from that EDR, correlates all that, runs it through an artificial intelligence engine. So that dwell time, of how long a threat actor is in your infrastructure, moving laterally, trying to get permissions and access to various systems, that you can have eyes on that and make sure that you're reacting appropriately and reducing that dwell time to get them access to your data, potentially them exfiltrating it, that type of thing. So.
Well, again, lots of this. It feels like we talk about some of the similar things regularly, and I think it's important because these are real things that are happening out there, and the big ones make the news. We deal a lot with the small ones, and the small ones can be. I shouldn't say the small ones. The ones that happen to small businesses can be even more impactful because of the impact that has. So it's something that we'll continue to talk about, because repetition, I think, is key in this space, just to educate and have people start to realize the impact. But really, the topic that we want to talk about today was really the choices and the confusion. This slide was recently shared by our director of solutions, Paul Hager, that kind of outlines, and this. I think the statement is, this is the complete list, but this is a list. Whether it's complete or not is hard to say, because it wasn't created this morning, and new solutions pop up all the time that we're hearing about and trying to keep our arms around. But this shows that there's a lot out there. There's a lot of players, some good, some bad. It's just extremely crowded. How did an IT leader even start choosing the solutions that their business needs?
Yeah, it's one of those things. Do you create a dartboard with this and throw a dart, and the partner that you pick is out there? Likely not, right? You want to have some level of intelligence behind the scenes, and it's impossible for an individual business to be able to pick the right solution stack that's really going to work together, right? I talked about correlating and artificial intelligence and all these. Not only are each of these individual products, taking care of kind of a niche area of your security, but you want all those security tools to be able to play together in a sandbox to be able to improve your security posture. And, Levity, we have a group of our senior engineers, leadership that is constantly looking at a number of these solutions to be able to put together, kind of that best in breed portfolio of solutions. And it's not something where we just select it once and we're done, right? The security landscape is ever changing. So we need to be constantly, reviewing the partners that we already have on the bus for a security solution to make sure that they're staying on top of research and development, staying on top of the threat landscape. And in some cases, those may have to be switched out for a more innovative product stack. And there are some market research tools that we use, Forrester, Gartner. You watch market trends, but really, in order to protect your network, you have to kind of pick the right partners to do business with. And that's somewhat of the approach that we've used at Elevity to be able to get through and provide the best security for our customers.
So you've mentioned some words like partners, portfolio. That would lead one to believe that there is not a silver bullet. There's not a application or solution out there that, once acquired, solves all a business's problems.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Unfortunately, there is no silver bullet, security used to be a lot easier, but as the threat landscape has changed and we're a more digitally connected world, really have to have a portfolio, a number of different security tools in the toolbox to be able to cover all your bases. Yeah, that's absolutely right, Jeff.
So what are the basics? What are the things that we would want to give some guidance to those that are listening, about the tools and services that really any organization should consider? What are the, top 2 or 3 things? Budgets. Let's just say budgets are tight. They know that they need to do something. They can't put the perfect solution in, but what are the things that everyone should have?
Well, so the things that everybody needs to have, I mentioned it earlier, with recent breaches, they're looking to steal identities, personally identifiable information, all of those things. MFA is going to be critical. That way, if somebody's credentials are breached, through another website, because we all like to use this similar username and passwords to make it simple. But to protect your organization, MFA is top of mind to make sure that those identities are there. And then, like I said, the other one is EDR, which is endpoint detect and respond. It's really differentiates itself from antivirus from the standpoint of it's looking at standardized baseline functions that users are doing on a day in, day out basis, finding anomalies, and you're able to remediate any issues that are found nearly immediately. So very beneficial from that standpoint. Those would be the top 2 things that I'd be looking to make sure that you're investing in. And I'll tell you, a lot of cybersecurity insurance that companies are now carrying, I've seen a number of them starting to require MFA and EDR solutions as part of their solution stack. And I'd be surprised if in 2022 that every cybersecurity insurance carrier requires that level of cybersecurity investment in the organization.
Yeah, so you mentioned some tools, and then you referred to cybersecurity insurance that they're starting to require some of these tools. So cybersecurity insurance is not enough as a security tool for an organization to feel comfortable.
Yeah, it's a good fail-safe, right? So if you do have a breach, they're able to come to the table and compensate you for lost revenue due to the outbreak, some remediation efforts. But it doesn't really improve your security posture. But because the insurance providers are seeing more risk associated with cybersecurity, in order to provide reasonable coverage rates for organizations, there has to be a level of shared faith, and that's why they're pushing down greater security tool requirements to their customers to be able to carry that cybersecurity insurance. Yep.
Yeah, and I asked that because it's a statement that we've heard from some organizations that don't feel that some of the tools are necessary because they have cyber security insurance. But that's kind of like saying you don't need smoke alarms and fire extinguishers in your house because you have homeowners insurance. The insurance is only helpful to rebuild it once it's burned down. It doesn't stop it, prevent it, slow it from having a huge impact. So yeah, thanks for that. You know, we've talked about the concept of layered security. You know, you mentioned a few tools earlier that you feel are kind of the basics that everyone should have. But can you talk a little bit more about the concept of layered security and why it really falls into the best practices that we talk about to our clients?
Yeah, the threat landscape, you know, while it's ever evolving, you know, these people are getting a lot better at being able to find vulnerabilities on your network and being able to, you know, capitalize on them. You know, whether that's direct access through a firewall, you know, an email link that gets you access to the desktop through some kind of host application, the ransomware. You know, they're starting to attack backups now, so you need to air gap your backups. It's just, there's so many different portions of your technology that powers your business that you need to protect. And, you know, thus the one shoe doesn't fit all. You need that, you know, the email, the advanced threat protection to be able to provide a layer of security so your users aren't able to receive viruses via email or links to bad websites that could potentially expose you to ransomware. You need to still have the firewall, you know, the EDR, the AV. You also need to have, you know, a number of other solutions to make sure that those threat actors don't get access to your internal systems, and if they do, that you can find out about them and get them out really quick. So that's kind of the layered approach, where it's not that one solution that you can count on to prevent it, but a number of solutions. And you know, another one is awareness training and just continuing to educate your employees on the risks and their responsibilities for utilizing their computers. You know, mobile device management to ensure those cell phones that are accessing critical pieces of data at least have a password on the front, that they're encrypted so that if they get lost, you know, they're able to, you know, not get direct access to any data and exfiltrate that. So, so that's really what I mean by a layered approach and why it's appropriate. You know, and I think we've talked about it in other sessions. I think a great way for an organization to start, because it can be pretty daunting, is just to have a security assessment. You know, there's a lot of frameworks. You know, the NIST framework, CMMC, which is, you know, an evolution of that NIST 800-171, or you've got the ISO 27001 certification. And what you do, get a baseline of where you're at today, understand where those improvements across your infrastructure can really make a difference, and then plan your budgets and your technology cycles to make sure that over time you're continuing to invest to close that gap. And you know, my recommendations are really look at those the biggest bang for your buck, right, and get those out of the way first.
Yeah, I think as you were talking, you know, I think many people have talked to us about they don't feel that they have a risk because either they don't think they're a target or they don't feel that the bad guys would want their data. And I think the thing organizations need to be considering is, to me at least, cybersecurity today feels a bit like a generator is needed for an organization, because it isn't so much about the data and that information getting out to the world or bad guys even wanting data. It's about organizations' ability to stay productive.
Yes. Yeah.
And if they lock up all your files and all your data, whether that's valuable to the outside world or even something that you'd pay ransom for, you can't process client orders, you can't build stuff, ship stuff, answer customer service questions. And so it's really about a productivity thing. When an organization loses power, they don't have a generator, they can't be productive. If your data gets locked up or your systems get locked up, you can't be productive. So if it isn't about data, then it should still be about productivity.
Yeah, and I totally agree. When I see customers that have been impacted by a ransomware outbreak or had a threat actor internal, and systems were compromised, and all of a sudden now you have to engage IT resources for remediation on a reactive versus proactive level. How long are you down? And then not only that, but just even an executive staff thinking about, was our data exfiltrated? Are they selling, our trade secrets out there on the internet? Do they have our customer list? What did they all get internally? There's just a level that you really don't want to go through that process. So yeah, definitely agree with you that it can choke out the revenue though.
Great. Well, I appreciate your time and sharing. We don't have doesn't look like we've had questions come in or that we're going to answer real quick here. We'll get back to anyone who does. So as a quick reminder, a couple other pieces. Don't hesitate to or don't forget to check alevityit.com/events for any activities, future webinars, thought leadership seminars that we have coming up, additional trainings that we make available. That's a great source to find all of those things. We do have some master Microsoft Teams workshops that are scheduled. So if you'd like to participate or have your teams, individuals or groups participate in some training about Microsoft Teams, which really hit the business community in full force last year when COVID really started to hit, and it's become, I think, a really essential business tool, but many don't really know how to use it to its capacity or even beyond some of the basic capabilities. So we have both an administrator and a power user session scheduled. There's some costs associated with those trainings, but we feel that it's well worth both the time and the cost to attend. So you can find information about those as well on alevityit.com. Scan this QR code or jump to the URL that I won't try to explain, but we'll leave it up here for a minute so you can claim your gift card for attending. Josh, thanks for the wisdom and the information about the ever-changing and hot topic of cybersecurity. Hopefully our listeners found a nugget or two to take from that and to consider, ponder, and potentially put in action. So thanks for your time. Have a great weekend, and we will talk to all of you soon.
Thanks, Jeff. Have a great weekend.